It's time for the whole 9 yards. Hello, everyone. I'm Ralph Ventre, ready to get you ready for Week 9 of the college football season here in the Northeast Conference. It's the third week of NEC play. The margin for error is shrinking. This is the last week before the calendar turns to November. 3 important league matchups on Saturday's docket, October 25th. Let's get right to work on those matchups with our No Huddle preview. We kick it off with our NEC football game of the week on ESPN3. It'll be Sacred Heart and St. Francis live from Campus Field starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on October 25th. This will be Sacred Heart's first ever game as a top 25 team. That's right, the Pioneers earlier in this week cracked both the Sports Network and the Coaches FCS Top 25 polls. They're number 24 in the Sports Network edition, number 22 in the Coaches Poll. If they want to remain nationally ranked, though, they'll have to bottle up the nation's leading rusher, SFU's Kahari Dixon. This matchup is one that pits the NEC's top rushing attack against the conference's number 1 ranked rushing defense. St. Francis U averages 5.1 yards per carry, while Sacred Heart limits opponents to only 2.1 yards per rush attempt. Sacred Heart defensive tackle Troy Moore knows that stopping the run is a key in this one.
Coach keeps saying, got to run to the ball, got to just keep hustling and stop the run game. And it's a conference game. It's the most important game right now.
Next up, it's Staten Island's Sun against Staten Island's team. Central Connecticut and its first-year head coach, Pete Rosamondo, will host Wagner in New Britain. Rosamondo is a product of Staten Island's Port Richmond High School, located only minutes from Wagner's Grimes Hill campus. Putting that storyline aside now, let's focus on the importance of this conference matchup between CCSU and Wagner. The Blue Devils will be fighting for their title hope lives on Saturday. They've started 0-2 in league play, but you can't count them out just yet. Last year's title was won by a team with 2 league losses. Wagner, on the other hand, they're 1-0 in conference play, outlasting St. Francis U in double overtime in Week 7 before enjoying a Week 8 bye. For the Seahawks to move to 2-0 in NEC play, they'll likely have to get a hold on Central running back Rob Holloman. The dynamic senior became CCSU's all-time leading rusher last week, and in last year's 52-17 win over Wagner, 147 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns. We'll see what he does this time around in New Britain. Moving down the docket to nationally ranked Bryant against Robert Morris. Yes, folks, you heard that right. The Bulldogs are back in the top 25 after last week's road win at St. Francis U. For the first time in NEC history, the league has 2 top 25 teams in the same week. As for Saturday's matchup in Smithfield, it should be a good one. Robert Morris is riding high after last week's emotional comeback win over Central Connecticut. Robert Morris's defense can help the chances of pulling out a road win by forcing key turnovers as it did last week against the Blue Devils. Turnover margin is likely to play a key role in this one. Bryant is an NEC best +9 for the season, while Robert Morris is -6 for the year in turnover margin. We'll see who wins that battle and the game live on Front Row come Saturday. And finally, we go out to Rooney Field, where Duquesne will take a break from conference play this week. The Dukes will host Division II member Alderson Brutus. Alderson Brutus already faced one NEC team earlier this season. Wagner handled them in a 26-0 shutout on Staten Island. As for Duquesne, the Duke's main focus right now has to be reestablishing themselves in the Northeast Conference race after last week's last-second loss to Sacred Heart. Before they jump back into league play, though, they'll get a chance to work on some things, get a little better, and get a little healthier. They return to league play on November 1st against SFU. One thing to watch for in this non-conference contest, though, Duquesne wide receiver Chris King. He continues to lead the nation with 915 receiving yards and 11 receiving touchdowns. Now, let's take a Twitter timeout. Hey, NEC fans, remember this guy? Yeah, that's former Duquesne center Nick Redden, an all-NEC selection back in his playing days. Well, he graduated last year, but he's still keeping tabs on Northeast Conference football, and he had this to say on Twitter this past weekend. For Nick, who helped Duquesne to 2 NEC co-championships, football is life. As you can see, the young man had quite a positive experience during his playing days in Duquesne. Now it's time to take a look at X's and O's, featuring one offensive player and then another player on the defensive side of the ball. We start with defense. Robert Morris's Forrest Mason. This defensive lineman missed the season's first 4 games due to injury, but he has provided quite a spark since returning. In 3 games back, Mason has made 18 tackles and logged 3 quarterback hurries. He was paramount in last week's win over Central Connecticut. This big strip sack of Nick Sangiacomo set RMU up for the game-winning score. On the offensive side of the ball, let's take a look at Wagner tight end Bryant Watts. The Burlington, New Jersey product is an old-school tight end of sorts. He actually does blocking in the run game, believe it or not. When he does catch the ball, he's got 5 catches this year. He usually winds up in the end zone. Watts leads Wagner with 4 receiving touchdowns. He's a physically gifted athlete who helps Wagner in the run game and is also a threat down the field. So that'll do it for the Week 9 edition of the Whole 9 Yards. 4 matchups this week. 3 are conference matchups. Of course, Duquesne is out of league play. They're hosting Alderson Brodus. You can watch that one on NEC Front Row, as well as 2 others. And then, of course, don't forget to tune in to the NEC Football Game of the Week on ESPN3, Sacred Heart and St. Francis, live from Campus Field at 1 p.m. For NEC Front Row, I'm Ralph Ventre. We'll see you next week on the Whole 9 Yards.